Trying to share the screen. All right. Welcome to lecture 11, or this is actually the second part of chapter 6, where we talk about multi-lane highway capacity and what's the level of service. Last time we covered what's the level of service for freeways, and today we will be talking about the level of service for highways. And next time we're gonna cover the level of service for two-lane highway, which is one lane per direction. So we're really going from the top-notch quality of any transportation facilities, which is freeways, down to a multi-lane highway, all the way down to two-lane highway. You're going to see there's lots of similarities of today's lecture of how did we obtain the level of service for freeways versus the multi-lane highways, but also you will see some differences along the way. So today's objective, again, we are the main goal is to define what is the level of service for multi-lane highway. Multi-lane highway, that means at least we have two lanes per direction. That's basically the criteria. So multi-lane highway characteristics and how are they differing from freeways. For multi-lane highways, generally the speed limit is somewhere between 40 and 60 miles per hour, which is different than driving on a freeway. Freeway like I-20, minimum again 65, 70, 75, and in some cases in Texas we have 85 miles per hour freeways. But for multi-lane highways, it's again the speed limit is going to be a little bit lower, somewhere between 40 and 60 miles per hour. They are usually again 4 or 6 lanes. That means 2 lanes per direction or 3 lanes per direction at the most. And they are often again separated by physical medians or two-way left turn lanes, and that's the term here. So that's two-way left turn lane medians, although they may be again undivided. So they can be divided or they cannot be undivided. And that's another difference between freeways and multi-lane highway. Multi-lane highway, we may have again a two-way left turn lane. That doesn't happen for freeways. We may have or may not have, again, we may have or may not have a division between the two separate directions. That's not the case for freeways. It always have to be divided. They are also typically located in suburban communities that they lead to some bigger central cities or high volume rural corridors. And those kind of corridors, again, they typically will connect two or more cities of significant activities, generating substantial number of daily trips. Also, another difference is the traffic signal. That's another difference between a freeway and a multi-lane highway. For a multi-lane highway, we're going to start to see traffic signals may be found along such highways. Although, again, traffic signals spaced roughly, again, if the traffic signals are spaced about 2 miles or more, um, um, that's again, that's a good thing. But if they are spaced at 2 miles or less, it's gonna now typically again start to create urban arterial conditions. And that's again another difference between having a freeway and how can we define a multi-lane highway. So really, in a nutshell, here these are. If I ask you maybe in second exam, what are the key factors that really distinguish the multi-lane highways from freeways? Again, first, vehicles again they may enter or leave the highway at intersections and driveways and through the medians at selected points. Whereas for freeways, you only get to enter or exit the highways on and off ramps. That's basically what it is. It's a limited control access. When it comes to traffic signs, again, traffic signs, they may be located depending on the type of facility for multi-lane highways. We do not see any traffic signs or traffic signals, I mean, for freeways. The third difference is the general design standards typically for multi-lane highway are a little bit lower compared to for highways. For example, again, the speed limit for highways are significantly lower than freeways. Um, Although again, I like to put this here, although an ideal multi-lane highway approaches freeway condition as access points and turning volumes approach zero. So again, at certain locations on a multi-lane highway, if it's really a good multi-lane highway, we're gonna approach the case of a freeway. But overall, there is those differences that's gonna make freeways are much more superior facilities as highways. Also, the visual setting and developed frontage along the multi-lane highways have more impact on drivers than the ones that you could see on a freeway. Freeways, again, the amount of side distance is more. There is not much going on the sides of the freeways, let alone there's nothing. There's big division between the two directions. That is not the case all the time for a multi-lane highway. So those, again, those are the major differences. And this is now you could tell. From now you can correct others when they mixed up the two different words between a highway and a freeway. You should be able now to tell the differences. Nevertheless, again, even if it's a multi-lane highway or like what we're going to discuss next time, a two-lane highway, we still have to grade that facility. We still have to come up with what is the level of service for this facility. And the steps are somehow similar to the freeway determination for a level of service. The first thing you need to establish what are the base conditions and capacity for a multi-lane highway. What are the really the ideal conditions? If I were to satisfy all of them, I don't have to do any calculation, and actually the highway will be determined as a level of service equal to A. If you go through the conditions and one of them, at least one of them is not satisfied, then you need to go now through the other three steps to determine by calculation what is the level of service for multi-lane highway. And doing so, similar again to what we did for freeways, we need first to estimate and as or measure the free flow speed, FFS. That's how we defined it last time. And then we need to calculate the analysis flow rate, which is the VEP. And then we need to calculate the density and eventually determine the level of service. So let's go through again the steps here and see what are the differences and similarities between level of service determination for freeways versus multi-lane highway. First, again, we need to define what are the base conditions. So the base condition first, this is we need to have a minimum lane width of 12 feet. If we have lane width less than 12 feet, now again, your experience as a driver on this multi-lane highway is going to be a little bit worse, and therefore the level of service is going to deviate from level of service A. That's why, again, a minimum of 12 feet lane width. Second is a minimum, and again, this is now a difference between a multi-lane highway and a freeway. Here, we have to have a minimum of 12 feet of total lateral clearance from both sides, right shoulder and a median. Minimum, you have to have 6 feet from the right and 6 feet, sorry, 6 feet from 6 feet worth of median. That's and again, for the first time we're talking about the median. Last time for freeways we only said I need to have a minimum of 6 feet from the right side because the median is known to be a wide median. I don't care about what's going on the other side because it's the median, it has to be there for a freeway, and it's significantly wide that you don't really, again, care about the experience of drivers in the other direction. But here for multi-lane highway is a little bit different here because sometimes the median between the two directions in multi-lane highway is a little bit smaller, or even sometimes they are undivided. So you, for a base condition, you have to have a minimum of 6 feet from each direction. Next is traffic stream consisting of passenger cars only. Similar, and that's again another similarity between multi-lane highway base conditions and freeways base condition. Again, the base condition is, or the ideal condition is to have all the drivers on this facility driving small passenger cars. So again, why is that? Because the higher the percentage of trucks on the street, the lower the free flow speed overall, and therefore the lower the level of service. No direct access points along the highway. So this is here a very ideal case where there is not much. So let's say again, this is the multi-lane highway. Now I'm saying there is not much of intersections or signals or access points. That's actually the technical word that we use. So there is no access points to this highway. And again, this is very ideal, I know, but if we satisfy that, then level of service A. If not, we're deviating again from level of service A. Another base condition is a divided highway. Again, we didn't talk about this for freeways because it's a given. Now, for the base condition for multi-lane highway, we have to have a divided highway. We have to have some sort of division between again the opposite two directions. If it's not divided, then it's not level of service A. It's gonna be a B or less. We have to have level terrain or grades with grades lower than 2%. No greater than, I mean, yeah, no greater than 2% to be in a base condition, which is similar to freeways. Driver population is of mostly familiar roadway users. That's also another similarity between a freeway and a multi-lane highway. We would like to have the majority of the users of this facility are daily commuters. They are aware of all the ups and downs, the rights and lefts of this multi-lane highway to improve the overall experience driving on this roadway. Otherwise, if we have majority of the people or a good chunk of the a good percentage of the people who are driving on this roadway for the first time, then the level of service will not be A. And then a free flow speed of 60 miles or more. That's another base condition that we did not see in freeways. Here, the minimum 60 miles per hour. If the free flow speed is less than 60 miles per hour, level of service is not A. Again, it's going to be B or lower. All right. So assuming, so again, if you go through those conditions, and I highly recommend you to do it first. Don't jump to the calculation. Go to the base conditions, and if you satisfy all the steps here on all the conditions, then there's no need to do any calculation, and it's gonna be a level of service A, and you're done. If none of these, at least one of these base conditions are not satisfied, then you go and need now to go to the other steps, which is again those other steps here. You need to estimate or measure the free flow speed, the analysis flow rate, and eventually the density, which is similar to what we've done for freeways. Here the equation, again, it looks a little similar to freeways, but we're adding a little bit more factors compared to the equation for the freeways. So the free flow speed, the way we can estimate it is the first factor here is BFFS, which is this is the free flow speed at the base condition, and then FLW, that's the adjustment factor for lane width, which is similar to freeways. Again, if we're having 12 feet or more, that FLW is going to be 0. If we're having less than 12 feet, then the FLW, we need to go table 6.3 to determine what's the correction factor for the lane width. The other correction factor is FLC. This is adjustment for lateral clearance. This is a new table, table 6.11, because now it's lateral clearance. It has to be left lateral clearance and right lateral clearance. Remember, for freeways, it was only right lateral clearance. Now it's going to be a different table. That's why it's a new table, 6.11. While for the FLW, it's the same table shared between, we shared them between we share them between both the freeways and the highways. Then we have FM. This is now a new factor. FM. This is an adjustment for median type. For the median type, what kind of median do you have? That's also is gonna govern the correction factor. If there is a median or if there is no median. FA. This is the number of access points. We're going to also have a table to determine that. So as similar in a way to freeways, that we need to estimate the free flow speed based on what is the base free flow speed, and then we're going to subtract some factors from that number, basically based on the condition of that freeway. So what are these factors? First one, again, FLW, as I said, this is table 6.3. This is same as freeways. So go back again to the previous lecture. How can we get the FLW? FLW is very similar, very simple, depending on the width. If the width of the lane is 12 feet or higher, the correction factor FLW is going to be equal to 0. If it's going to be from 11 to 11.99, there is one correction for that. If it's from 11 till 10, another correction. Then let's go now to the FLC. FLC, this is adjustment factor for lateral clearance, which is a brand new table here. This is only for multi-lane highways. TLC, basically it's the lateral clearance from the right plus the lateral clearance from the left. So, and the table here is divided into actually two halves. This half is for 4-lane highways, and this half is for 6-lane highways. So first thing you need to know, what kind of highway do you have? Is it a 4-lane highway, which is 2 lanes per direction, or 6-lane highway, which is 3 lanes per direction? Once you identify that, then you need to calculate what is the total lateral clearance that you have. And the way you measure this is actually explained in this note right here. The total lateral clearance, this is the sum of the lateral clearances from both sides. Again, if greater than 6, use 6 feet. So let me give you an example here. If I have, let's say again, this is here the highway, and if I have here, let's say 8 feet from the left and 3 feet from the right. How can I measure the total lateral clearance? Again, I'm gonna sum up the two numbers, unless if they are exceeding 6 feet. If they are exceeding 6 feet, I'm just gonna take 6 feet into that calculation. So here in this, TLC from the right is actually 3, and TLC from the left is more than 6, so it's 6. So 3 plus 6, that is equal to 9 feet. You're gonna go to 9, which is somewhere between 8 and 10, and the correction factor, again, you're gonna do a simple interpolation to get the correction factor. How about if you have, again, instead of 3 and 8, if you have 6 and 6, again 6 and 6, that means you're gonna have 6 plus 6, that's 12. So 12, that means really the correction factor is equal to 0, and that's actually the base condition. How about if you have 10, even if you have 12 feet from one side and you have 1 feet from the other side, what's going to be the lateral clearance? Again, you're going to take from each side and compare it to 6. If it's more than 6, you're just going to take 6. More than 6, it's not going to make any big difference. So 6 plus 1, that is 7, which is going to be between 6 and 8, right here. So really here, it's not about having lots of space from one side and no space on the other side. You have to have, to meet the base condition, you have to have 6 feet from each side. So that's when it comes to the TLC. All right, so now FLW, we got to know that from the previous lecture. FLC, now we know how to get it. FM, this is the adjustment for the median. It's a simple table, very simple table. It's all about, is it undivided highway or is it divided highway? If it's divided highway, that's good. So there's no correction because now we are meeting the base condition. But if it's undivided highway, imagine now again there is 2 directions, 2 lanes per directions worth of a highway. But guess what? These 2 directions, they are not divided. Your experience as a driver is going to be way worse than if there is a big median in the middle. And therefore, we're saying here that if it's undivided, we're going to have a reduction in the free flow speed by at least 1.6 miles per hour. So that's table 6.12 to know what's the FM, what's the correction factor for the median adjustment factor. The last correction that we're going to do is FA. This is adjustment for axis. How many axis points do you have? And that you will need to go to table 6.13. Simple table as well. So number of axis points per mile. If you have 0 axis points per mile, then the correction factor is equal to 0. If you have 10 axis points, again, either intersections or mainly intersections, if you have 10 axis points per mile, then the speed reduction is going to be 2.5 miles per hour. If you have 20, that's 5 miles per hour. If you have 40, imagine you have 40 axis points per mile. That's a lot of people getting into that multi-lane highway. And if that's the case, you're going to have a reduction of 10 miles per hour. Susan is asking, do driveways count as access points? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Any point that's gonna get people and drivers into that multi-lane highway, that's an access point. And the more we have them, the less the overall speed, and therefore the lower the level of service. So again, 40 access points is 10. If I give you like 25 instead of 30 or 20, you're going to do a simple interpolation. As you can see, by the way, the relationship here is very linear. So if I really want to draw this, if there is 0 access points versus 40, and you're going to draw a line like that, so 40 will be at 10 miles per hour, 20 will be 5, 10 will be 2.5 miles per hour, and 50 and 30, that's gonna be 7.5. So anything in between, you're gonna do a little interpolation. All right, so once you get all the corrections, you're good to go to get the free flow speed. So go back to the steps again here. We are estimating the or measuring the free flow speed. Then now we need to get what is the analysis flow rate, VP. Good news is it's the same calculations as what we did last time. Same thing. VP is equal to capital V. This is the volume, which is the number of vehicles in 1 full hour over peak hour factor. We got to know what is the peak hour factor. The peak hour factor is equal to capital V over V15 times 4. V15, this is the maximum flow in 15, the worst 15 minutes times 4. So this is how you get the peak hour factor. The N, this is number of lanes per direction. FHV, this is the heavy vehicle adjustment factor. The same calculations, the same tables we used for for freeways. And FP, this is the driver population factor, which is ranges from 0.85 to 1. Typically, we use 1 if there is nothing was told to us that there's noticeable amount of people who are not familiar with those roadway, and unless if there is a big percentage, then again, then we can lower it to 0.85 to zero point 0.9, 0.95, depending on the case. And that's why here I didn't go through the calculation because it's the same as freeways. So the VP is the same as freeways. So you can use the table like what we've done last time, or what I prefer more, which is most of traffic engineers I like to use, is this table right here. This table again, same thing. We're gonna get the y-axis. This is the flow rate. This is VP, and this is the y-axis will be the average passenger car speed, which is FFS. This is the free flow speed. So let's say now we've gone through a calculation and the flow rate VP is 1200 passenger cars per hour per lane. So I'm gonna draw a vertical line, and then you do the free flow speed, and the free flow speed is 55 miles per hour. So that is 50, that is 60, so 55 miles per hour is right here. This is the point of intercept. Then this is actually a level of service C, which is between this line and this line right here. Anywhere in this, anywhere in this area, in this triangle, is the level of service B. Or you can do what we did before, which is actually you can calculate the density is equal to VP over FFS. So the flow rate, which is 1200 over the speed 55, and you're never going to compare the density. So here the density, again, the level of service C, if the density is somewhere between 18 passenger cars per mile per hour to 26. So anything between 18 and 26, again, you're going to end up in a level of service C. How can we improve that level of service? Again, if we increase the number of lanes, then the flow rate will increase, or actually the flow rate now will be, again, we're going to have 3 lanes instead of 2 lanes, so the number of vehicles are going to be less in each lane, so the flow rate might actually be lower, and that's actually, like, let's say again 800 versus the same speed. So now we're gonna have a level of service B instead of C. Or you can use the table. Again, the table is the same thing. But here you need to know again what's your free flow speed. Let's say that the free flow speed, same to the same example here, 55 miles per hour. So we're gonna use this portion of the table, and then now you need to decide what's the average, um, again, the average speed or the maximum V over C, or the maximum flow rate. So that you can use any of these numbers to determine for you the level of service. For us, the flow rate is, we said here, it's going to be 1200. So 1200 is somewhere between here and there, so somewhere between B and a C, but it's getting closer to the B to the C. So that's why you click and you get the level of service equal to C. But I like to and I prefer to use the table. I mean the figure, because it just pinpoint right away that again this is, if you have, if you know what's your flow rate, if you know what's the free flow speed, you're gonna get direct number from this graph. That's about it actually for the level of service for highways. So again, little summary, quick summary here. We defined what's the level of service for multi-lane highways. We defined how to define a multi-lane highway. The speed is lower. We may or may not have medians. We may have traffic signals, and overall the specification for a multi-lane highway is a little bit less than freeways. And then when it comes to the level of service calculations, again, you need to define your base conditions. If you meet your all of the base conditions, the level of service A. If not, you need to go through the calculations. The calculations are simple, a little bit similar, yet different than freeways. So the free flow speed, again, it's BFFS. We're going to discuss, well, how can we get the BFFS? Typically, it's given to you, or is the speed limit, the posted speed limit plus 5. We're going to go through this in the calculation session later on. And then we're going to subtract FLW, which is that has to do with lane width, and FLC, which has to do with the lateral clearance from both sides. And then FM, this is the number of the adjustment for whether we have a divided highway or not. And then FA, the number of access points. Again, TLC, as a reminder, you sum the lateral clearance from both sides, and you take up to 6 feet of that number. So if you have 5 and 5, that's 10. If you have 10 and 5, you're going to have 5 plus 6, that's 11. And you get into this table. In this table, it can be a six lane highway, which means 3 lanes per direction, or a 4-lane highway, which is 2 lanes per direction. Here again, table 612. This is again, if it's undivided, that's not good. And that's why we're going to have a reduction in the free flow speed of 1.6 miles per hour. If it's divided, that's base condition. So therefore, there's no reduction in free flow speed. For access points, again, depending on the number of access points per mile. If I have 0 access points per mile, that section of the highway is going to be, I'm not going to have any reduction in free flow speed. But if the number of access points keep increasing, the free flow speed will continuously decrease. Then you need to get the analysis flow rate, which is VP. This is the 15-minute passenger car equivalent flow rate. We really now want to go through equivalency to change everything to handle the peak hour factor, to handle how much heavy vehicle adjustment factor, to handle what's the traffic population factor, and all in one equation to get for us what's the flow rate. Once you get the flow rate, again, you can say the density is equal to VP over the free flow speed, and that's how you get your density. From the density, again, anything, as I mentioned to you in the freeway level of service, anything less than 11 passenger cars per hour. So this line, anything 11 or lower, that's level of service A. Somewhere between 11 and 18 passenger cars per hour, per mile per hour, that is a level of service B. From 18 to 26, that's a C, and things go all the way down. If I have now 45 passenger cars per mile per hour, that's the level of service E, and anything less than that, it's a level of service F. With that, again, we finished this lecture. Again, that has to do with the level of service for multi-lane highway. Next time, we're going to talk about the level of service for two-lane highway, which is just one lane per direction. This is the lowest grade compared to freeway, then multi-lane highway, all the way down to two-lane highway. Thank you so much.